Welcome back to EVR, guys. This is the CF Racer by Ride1Up. It's one of those releases of e-bikes that comes around from time to time that not only has us raising eyebrows, but I think the industry as a whole looks at something like this and wonders how exactly Ride1Up got it done. So stick around and let's talk about what makes the CF Racer by Ride1Up so special. All right, guys, the CF Racer by Ride1Up. Now, at first glance, this may not look like an e-bike to you, but it is in fact a Class 3 e-bike that can go up to 28 miles an hour on pedal assist. Now, the CF in the name stands for carbon fiber, which means this frame, all of the frame, fork, seat post, and handlebar are all carbon fiber, and that brings the weight on this e-bike down to 28.6 pounds, which is a pretty shockingly lightweight e-bike. Now, this bike comes in two configurations. The way we have it set up here is the gravel bike configuration, but just so you know, should you want the road bike configuration, you still get the same great bike with the same great lineup of parts and components. But what will change is you'll get a more road-specific tire and tread pattern and wheel, a more road-specific gear ratio in the back, and a more road-specific flare to those handlebars. Now, this bike comes in at $2,295. And it comes in two frame sizes, a small and a large. The small fits riders from 5'3" to 5'8", and this large fits riders 5'8" up to 6'3". Now, they offer this bike in two colors. This one is the clouded gray that has a nice satin matte gray look to it. But if you want something that's got a little more flair, they have a rainbow black gloss. That is a black gloss paint job, but depending on how the light hits it, you'll also see some speckles of different colors come and go throughout the frame. So that's a nice option if you want something aside from this matte gray. Now, the payload capacity on this bike is 225 pounds, and I wanted to talk about some quick geometry numbers real quick. I'll run through the large frame geometry numbers, but if you'd like the numbers for the small frame, they'll have them on Ride1Up's website, and I'll put a link down below so you can check that out. But real quick, some important numbers. The wheelbase from rear wheel hub to front wheel hub is 40.9 inches. The standover height is at 31.7 inches, and the reach of the bike is 15.1 inches. Now, Ride1Up does not ship this with any extra accessories like lights, fenders, or racks, but I think that's by design. On one end, you got to keep prices low, and at this price point for this much bike, it's already a very good deal. But on top of that, Ride1Up doesn't know that you want lights, racks, or fenders because they don't know what type of riding you're going to do. You could use this bike as a true performance gravel or cycling bike, but you could also use it as a great commuter or even a bike packing bike. So the world is yours when it comes to how you want to use this bike and what you want to add to it, but Ride1Up did a great job in preparing you for it by adding lots of mounting points. So let's take a look at some of those now. Here in the back, we've got several, so you can add a rack system, and Ride1Up does have what they call their Connect Plus rack, which has a weight capacity of 50 pounds where you can carry gear over this rear tire. But they also added several bosses and mounting points along the frame. We have some on this back tube, two on the bottom side of the top tube. We have three here. We have two more on the underside, and then another set up at the top of the fork. Now, I'd like to see in future releases maybe add some to the fork for adding bags and gear if you wanted to, but as it sits now, you have a lot of options for kitting this out the way you like. Now, the tires on this bike are 700C by 40C, and these are Continental Terra Trail tires that have a subdued knobby tread pattern in the center, but they're kind of just low so you have less rolling resistance so you can build up speed. But they also have raised knobbies on the outer edges, so you still have the ability to get traction on climbs or descending or just doing any kind of off-road work, which is really nice. Now, I've been riding this bike all over town. I've been going up into the mountains on the gravel roads in the city. I've put almost 200 miles on this bike, and I've been kind of playing with air pressures. If I'm on a predominantly gravel ride, I'll run in the mid-30s, so 35, 38, and that seems to be a good sweet kind of balance between speed, power, and still having traction. But if I'm primarily on pavement, I'll then go to mid to upper 40s, and that seems to also be a good sweet spot. So let's talk about the components, the motor, the battery, and it'll kind of shed light as we go through these sections just how good of a value the CF Racer is. All right, so let's talk about the heart and soul of the CF Racer, and that's going to be the battery. Now, this is a 36 volt, 7 amp hour battery giving 252 watt hours. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but this frame is very sleek. It has a nice slick form factor, and I can wrap my hand all the way around this biggest part of the tube and almost touch fingers. So as you can see, 252 watts is very well hidden in this bike. It's the type of form factor that you could park this in front of a store or in a bike rack out in public, and it doesn't scream e-bike, but more importantly, it doesn't scream steal me. So I like how this looks. This also has a 15 amp controller that uses sine wave technology. Now, the bike and battery and motor are not UL certified, but Ride1Up says they're currently in process and that certification is on its way. Now, the juice for this bike is sent back to this 250 watt Bafang rear hub motor. Now, this motor nominally has 250 watts, but it can peak up to 540 watts. It also pumps out 42 Newton meters of torque. I've ridden this bike all over town, up into the backcountry and mountains, gravel rides, pavement rides, hill climbs. That 42 Newton meters of torque, 540 peaking watts, all in a 28-pound form factor. This bike really has a good balance of speed, performance, and capability, but in a very sleek, lightweight package. Now, our friends over at Electric Bike Report did a range test on this bike where they tested it on PAS1 and PAS5 to see how far it would go. The brand estimates at PAS5, so the highest level, it'll get up to 16 miles. And they say on PAS1, the lowest PAS level, you'll get up to 40 miles. Electric Bike Report ran the test and they got 15.3 miles on PAS5 and 47 miles on PAS1. So not only meeting, but even exceeding those range estimations by the brand, which is always a good sign. Now, the way this motor activates is on a cadence sensor system, but it may not be the type of cadence sensor you're more used to on the more entry-level e-bikes. This uses a 36 magnet system and what Ride1Up calls their R1 CBS system, which is essentially Ride1Up's current-based system, which measures how fast and how hard you're pedaling to then try to vary that power delivery back to you and match what you're requesting versus kind of an all or nothing like you feel on some cadence sensors. In my time with the bike, I feel like it's a really nice balance of feeling like a torque sensor where it varies that power and tries to match what you're doing, but not passing on the cost of a torque sensor to you in the final price. I think it was a nice sweet spot. But more importantly, now let's look at the componentry and group set on the CF Racer. All right, so when it comes to componentry, the theme on this bike is going to be SRAM Rival 1. Now, SRAM Rival 1 was a group set I was personally surprised to see on this bike because now we're getting into the mid-tier group sets that are more performance-oriented, more precise, and more expensive. So it was really surprising to see it on this bike. And to give you some context, the SRAM Rival 1 series was their answer to the Shimano 105, which was Shimano's mid-tier group set. So we're getting into some more performance-oriented components, and from my time on the bike, they've really performed well. Now, starting here in the back, we have an 11 to 42 tooth rear cassette, and that's going to be a part of this 1x11 drivetrain. Now, this range at 11 to 42, I've taken this bike everywhere from the city and downtown and commuting to work, all the way out to some of our mountains here and out into the BLM land for gravel rides, and it's performed great everywhere. This range is kind of a good do-it-all range. The only time I found myself wishing I had a little bit more range was on hard hill climbs, but let's be honest, this is still an e-bike, and I was able to just supplement a little pedal assist to kind of get me over those hard climbs and continuing on my ride. So it's a really good balance of range, capability, without going over the top. Moving up to the front chainring, we have a 44 tooth Pro Wheel chainring. It's mated to 170 millimeter crank arms, and then Ride1Up provided these platform pedals with the bike. If you zoom in, I wanted to show you just how small these were. They're kind of unique. They're not your typical bike pedal size. They're pretty small compared to my hand, but I've found that riding with these right out of the box, it's a pair of pedals right out of the box so you can start riding, so that's automatically a good start. But on top of that, it's a nice pedal to have because I'm not worried about what type of shoes I'm wearing. It kind of gets the job done for any scenario. And for those of you who are going to try to push the limits on this or more just cycle oriented, you're probably going to throw on clipless or MTB flats anyway, depending on the type of riding that you're doing. Now, the braking system on this bike is also SRAM Rival 1, and it is a hydraulic disc brake setup with 2 piston calipers and 160 millimeter rotors. Now, in my rides with this bike, I've had everything from short stops in traffic where drivers weren't paying attention to just slow and controlled braking, maybe on some hill descents or times I was coming down a highway over 30 miles an hour. These brakes never made me nervous. I never felt like I was pushing them to their limits. They stopped confidently and comfortably every time I needed them to, so no complaints. Now, moving up to the seat post, I did mention earlier, it is carbon fiber, which is already very cool, but for the saddle choice, they went with the Cell Royale Asphalt GF series. Now this has a nice, sleek look to it. It's also pretty comfortable. I've been riding this, I've had several hours in this saddle at this point. It feels good on my rides, but saddles are also very specific to the rider. So if you want something different, these are always easy to swap out. But again, it's nice to see reputable name brand components, even on the seat from a brand like Cell Royale. So let's move up to the handlebars and talk about this setup. So up here in the handlebars, we do have traditional drop bars like you'd see on this style of bike. And true to their gravel bike theme, they do have a nice flare. That's a 12-degree flare. Now, the bars themselves are a one-piece design. So this whole handlebar setup and the stem is one piece. It's not a separate stem and handlebar. And I think it looks really good. It's a very clean, the lines are all internally routed. It's just a really good setup. Now, if you're someone who wants to go to a bike fitter and swap out your bars and stem and upgrades, you'll just run into a position where you might have a little bit more labor costs because now they got to pull brake lines and things like that. But all in all, the handlebar looks very good. It's very clean. And for me, it's been very comfortable. So we have this nice flat top here so I can rest my palms, but I've also got drop positions. I've got hood positions, and they just kind of intuitively feel good the way they sit. I can still access the brakes and I can shift. And speaking of shifting, if you come in here, you'll see we have SRAM Rival 1 double tap shifting levers. So double tap meaning it's only on one side, so we have nothing on this side, and a half press will go down a gear and a full press will go up a gear. So between those two, you can just do it with one finger without really thinking about it. And I'd never used this system in the past, but it's very user-friendly, and within a few miles, I wasn't even thinking about it. The levers are SRAM Rival 1 brake levers. And if you look down in here, you might notice there's some buttons, and that's to operate the display. You've got one on the left and one on the right. And speaking of that, let's jump into how to operate and go through the menu settings on this VeloFox DM2 display. All right, so this is Ride1Up's VeloFox DM02 display. It is full color, and on your home screen here, which this is the startup screen, you have all your basic info like current time, current speed, current battery level, your pedal assist level, and as I hit that, you'll see it will kind of come up based on which pedal assist setting we're on. And then you have your trip odometer, and on the right, you have your wattage output. So if we double tap each button, we'll get some other screens to look at. Here we have the lifetime mileage of the bike at 343 miles, lifetime average speed at 15 miles an hour. Max speed of the bike has been 45.6, which is screaming fast. And we have voltage at 39.2. SOC stands for state of charge, which it's currently at 77%. Here you can see in which pedal assist level you use the most of the, or how much you're using each when you ride the bike. So 28% of the time we're in PAS1, 22% of the time PAS2, and so on there. And then if you hit it again, you'll see the average wattage output has been 95 watts and the max being 453. And then one more double click of each button takes you back to the home screen. Now, if I was to hold the left button for a few seconds, the bike will go into walk mode. And that's going to allow you just to walk with the bike without having to pull it yourself. But with a 28-pound bike, it's really easy to move this around. Now, I'm going to power this off because to get into the settings menu, you have to do it within 10 seconds of the bike powering on. So let me turn it off now. There it is. And within 10 seconds, you have to hit both of these buttons on the startup, hold them down, and boom, there you're in the settings menu. So you can see we have exit out of the menu. You can change the units from imperial to metric or back and forth. You can set the time. You can get information about the bike's maintenance intervals and schedules. You can adjust the backlight settings. You can change the time it takes to auto sleep. You can set a password for your bike. You can go into SOC show, which means you can put that numerical battery percentage on the main screen if you want. You can set the current voltage limit. You can change the display info, and you can get the display info like the firmware and the serial number, and then the same thing from the battery info here. Then if you had any problems with the bike or you wanted to reset everything, you could always go to a factory reset. Holding these buttons will take us back to the home screen. And that will wrap up the display. Now let's do the fun part and go for a ride. All right, guys, so out here on a gravel ride. I'm in an area that I figured was a good spot to show you just how the bike rides. I'm on some BLM land heading back into town, and this gravel is a mix of loose gravel, hard pack, washboards, a little bit of everything. So it'll kind of give you a good idea of how the bike's performing, and I'll kind of talk about it as well as how it feels, the motor and things like that. So let's get on the road. All right, so you guys probably can't see the display, but the bike is currently off, and I only did that because I wanted you guys just to know how really just I want to say effortless, but how easy it is to pedal, right? So this is a bike, when it comes to e-bikes, most e-bikes are not going to be great for pedaling without power. You can, pedal assist is obviously where it's at, but this is one of those bikes coming in under 29 pounds that you genuinely can pedal and ride even if you run out of juice, which I really like. And it also lends to that performance aspect. If you're a serious cyclist or someone who really tracks your bike, your ride, your performance, your fitness, this is one of those bikes that are really shine for you. And especially if you're one of those guys or gals that's performance oriented and you're cycling and you've kind of been looking at e-bikes but you're not really sure, not sure you want to commit to one, this would be the one that kind of blurs the lines between the analog bike you know and the e-bike you're not sure about yet. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So I'm going to kick it on while we're riding. And as you can see, this is fairly rough gravel, but it's handling it well. These 40C tires do a great job. I actually really like these tires. I love the gum walls on them. Let's look at how this motor performs. And I'm going to go through all 5 levels of pedal assist and see what kind of speeds we get. So we're currently at level 1. There's no motor noise. I love that. And we're going about 14. Let's go to level 2. And now we're about 16, level 3, $18, 4, up over 20, 21, and then 5. About mid-20s, I saw about 23, 24 peak there, which slight incline on gravel makes sense. I'm sure on flats this has, well, I know on flats it has no problem get to 28. So it really does ride nice on gravel. Can reach good speeds on gravel even with pedal assist, and even pedals well without pedal assist. These shifters, this double tap system, I've only been using the one hand. Let's get over this. I've only been using the one hand, but it's just easy. I use my middle finger and I just tap it while I ride. The range has been nice at 11 to 42. Rear cassette is a really solid range. And let's talk about these brakes. Let's get up to speed a little bit. Going about 20. And let's hit them hard. I mean, that's a quick stop. No complaints in the braking department. If you're serious about cycling or someone into cycling, this is really, I really think this is the kind of e-bike you're looking for. But the great thing about it is if you're a college student, someone commuting to work, someone who wants to get around town on a sleek bike that doesn't scream e-bike, it can do all those things too. It's just been really fun to ride. And in this environment, from the gravel to your neighborhood, even up into the city streets, it's just a fun, easy way to ride. So let's head back in and we'll wrap this up. All right, guys, I'm here with Ben. He's our in-house mechanic. He's got a ton of experience wrenching bikes, so we like to get his take on the CF Racer. But real quick, Ben, before you do, I just wanted to say thank you to Feedback Sports. They provided us with their Pro HD rack. It's been really awesome. We've been using it for a while, and we've overall been impressed with the quality of it. They got a whole lineup of bike repair stuff, so if you're the kind of guy that likes to tinker on your bike and want to check them out, I'll put a link down in the description. But Ben, what are your thoughts on the CF Racer? What stands out to you of things you like?
All right, thanks, Mike. First things first, I really like the sleek design. I like the integrated bar and stem. It looks nice. Anytime you can reduce the amount of cables seen on the bike, it just looks better. Simple as that. I really like the through axle in the fork to the hub. That just makes the bike feel a lot stronger and stiffer when you're going through dirt roads, standing up to accelerate up a climb or something like that. It's just going to feel awesome. Also, the bottom bracket spindle, a 24 millimeter oversized style. Same reason as the front through bolt. It just feels better for a bigger rider or a more aggressive pedaler. It's just great. Also, I like the parts spec. These are all things that you can find replacement pieces and parts for in your local bike shop, so that's a big plus on a bike like this.
Awesome. Now, what kind of things would you improve on this?
You know, from a mechanic standpoint, it might be a little bit more labor intensive, and when it comes down to the customer paying for it, to put a new bar and stem on here might take a little bit more time just because you've got to pull the cables. It's really not that big of a deal. Secondly, there's a dust cap underneath the bottom bracket, so you can install a second battery and the wiring to go to it, but it's not sealed off very well. Dust is a major problem with electronic components, also almost more than water, so it'd be nice to have that sealed off better. The third thing is to remove the rear wheel if and when a flat tire happens. There's no way to detach the power cable to the hub motor. So it's just going to be a little bit more complicated. Not a huge deal, not a deal breaker, but just a little bit more complicated when you want to change that rear tire.
Awesome, man. Thanks very much for your time, Ben.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, guys, so let's wrap this up. Who is the CF Racer1 good for? In my opinion, this bike is a little bit of anything you want it to be if you're looking for that performance-oriented e-bike, something you can cycle in, something you can gravel ride in, something you could do training rides in, recovery day rides on. But also, this is a great bike for someone who maybe wants to ride around a college campus or through a major city. This is a good commuter bike, a school bike. But it's also a good get out there and get some fitness bike. So this is one of those offerings that I think is a good choice for a lot of people. And if that's something you're into, this may be a great option for you. And at 28 pounds coming in at $2,200, it's just a very good value when you look at everything front to back that you're getting. So hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. Hope you guys are having a great day, and we will see you guys next time. If you haven't done it already, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys out on the trail.